Good morning, everyone. It's Gail from O'Keefe Agencies, and I'm here today with Tech Talk 4. So we are going to talk a little bit today about pedicuring. We do lots of pedicuring in the industry, but I'd like to talk about the diabetic foot. So, excuse me. So it's very important for us as pedicures to be able to recognize what a diabetic foot looks like. When we do a client profile, certainly those that are diabetics, it's one of the first questions that's asked on a profile. And they're going to be, forthcoming and tell us that they are. And others will be undiagnosed and they won't know that they are. So it's very important that we have some idea of what we're looking at and hopefully have some idea that there is a possibility this person could be diabetic and be undiagnosed. So some of the things that we have to be very careful of first when working on diabetics is we don't do any cutting cutting of the cuticles. We don't use any cuticle nippers. We can soften, we can push back. We don't do any blading of the sole of the foot. That's an absolute no-no. So we don't use any tools, corn chisels or any removal of corns that can possibly bring bleeding. Because diabetics have something called neuropathy, so it's damage to the nerve endings, and the longest nerves are in our feet and our legs. And when we have neuropathy, that is damage and numbness. And the messages from the brain to our different parts of the body travel on our nerve endings. And so when you have damage to nerve endings, the messages from the brain are delayed. And excuse me, full of frogs today. So basically, if you cut somebody who's a diabetic, they can take a long time before the blood starts to clot. In a non-diabetic, it's about 20 seconds. But in diabetics, depending on the severity, they can be a long time bleeding. And of course, diabetics have a very low rate of healing and a very high risk of infection. And they're prone to fungal infections as well. So that's one big no-no for us. Another thing that we don't do as pedicurists is cutting the toenails with actual nail clippers. Diabetic skin is extremely dry and their nails are very dry. So we may be meaning just to cut straight across, and in actuality the nail could crack down a little bit down the sidewall, and of course as the new nail plate grows up, it can become ingrown, puncturing the sidewall, and then it can get infected. And of course, that infection can turn to something very serious with a diabetic. So if we need to shorten their nails, we can use an electric file if you're trained to use that, or a regular nail file and shorten their nail this way. When we're talking about soaking someone who's a diabetic, we use a very mild formula soak. We are only going to soak for 5 minutes instead of 10 like we would on our other clients. 5 minutes is enough because 10 minutes would start to dehydrate that diabetic skin, and of course we don't want to do that. If we decide that we want to do a paraffin treatment, diabetics can have a paraffin treatment, but we must make sure that the towel is a little cooler before we wrap the actual foot in there. You can't use any booties, any electric booties or hot water bottles, and the paraffin should only stay on 5 minutes as well, because normally 10 minutes, what we do with our other clients, is detrimental only to do 5 on diabetics, because again you are dehydrating them because you're causing them to perspire immensely underneath the paraffin, and we don't want to remove that moisture. So that's another thing that we have to be very careful of. Oftentimes they bruise very easily, so our massage should just be an effleurage, a very light massage if need be. And if there's ever any open wounds of any kind on the skin or the legs, of course, you're not going to do any exfoliation or anything like that when they are in the bath. That's very important as well. So when we talk about creaming the feet and moisturizing the feet, it's very important what cream you decide to use. Oftentimes we use a urea-based cream because urea is something that holds 50% of its weight in moisture, and it adds a lot of moisture to the skin that's needed. We do have a urea line here at O'Keefe's. There's one right here. It's LCN Urea Bath, so it's like a milk bath. A beautiful soft product with urea and provitamin B5, which is an anti-inflammatory effect as well. And it comes in a cream as well. We have it in a mask, and we actually have it in a milk spray too. So these are the products definitely that we recommend for working on diabetic feet. So I want to just mention the diabetic foot syndrome. So that's a condition of the foot. If your client says to you that, no, I don't think I'm a diabetic, and when you look at the foot, you're going to see some of these things now that I'm going to mention. The next question would be to them, is there diabetes in the family? Because they possibly could be that undiagnosed diabetic. So diabetic foot syndrome is, the best way I can describe the sole of the foot maybe is taking a sheet. It looks like if you take a sheet of white tissue paper and you crumple it all up in a little ball, and then you spread it all out on a table and make it all flat. And it looks like that, the shiny, crinkly sole of the foot that you're seeing. Okay, so that's an indicator. Redness, irritations, a lot of small corns and calluses. Now, other people can have that as well, but this is also apparent in diabetic feet. And as I said earlier, poor hair growth on the legs, extra debris around the folds of the nail, and you can see all the veins. You see a lot of spider veins, vascular issues going on in the feet and the legs. So these are indicators that they possibly could be diabetic. So what we would do then is treat that pedicure like they are diabetic. So we work in the parameters basically that we know we can, making sure that we cut the toenails properly, we don't use the blading, we watch the soaking, we watch the massage, all of those things that we discussed a little bit previous. And then you can take it one step further. There's something that I have, and it's something that I will absolutely give anyone who requests it. And it's called the 10 Commandments to Diabetic Feet. So this is something that was given to us by Dr. Johann Aust of Germany years ago, and he's a specialist with this. And he did this up as something that we could give our clients for maintenance on their feet at home. So I'm just going to read it through for you. And of course, it's something that is very important that every diabetic should know. So first thing is to look at their feet. They need to look at their feet every day. And if they can't get down and see their feet, we recommend that they just go to the dollar store, buy a mirror, put it on the floor, put their foot up, look at the bottom of their foot, get the mirror or get someone else to move the mirror around and check their feet. Because through neuropathies, they have a loss of sensitivity and they don't feel temperature and they don't feel if there's a puncture in their feet. So they could have rocks in their shoes, not even knowing they're in there, and that could be causing damage to the sole of the foot and they don't even feel it. So it is important that they check their feet every day with a mirror. Washing their feet, as we said, just washing the feet in a nice mild formula and lukewarm water. And not soaking, just washing the feet every day to keep the bacteria down and drying the feet very well, especially between the toes. Keep the skin, as we said, soft and supple with the proper creams, nothing too heavy. A diabetic skin breathes very differently than ours, so we have to have very light creams that are high in moisture content. And of course, as we said, the urea line is a great line for that. Filing the nails straight, never ever cutting them with clippers or having sharp corners or anything. Cut straight across and have your corners softly rounded. Now you can have this done by a pedicurist or a diabetic foot care, a podiatrist, because oftentimes people can't get at their own feet properly, but it is important that they cut their toenails correctly. If you have any corns, they should be treated by a podiatrist or a doctor, the removal of the corns. Calluses can be filed down on the feet, certainly that's not going to hurt to do. But of course, always be, use a higher grit, a softer grit file to do that. No hot water bottles, no heating devices. So at home, if their feet are cold, they wouldn't get ready and put a hot water bottle on there because they have very thin skin that is very easily blistered, and they won't feel the heat of the hot water bottle, and of course they can develop a blister, which we don't want that to happen. Never walk barefoot. Now that's indoors and outdoors. We need proper well-fitting shoes, but you would never go around the house without the slippers. You can walk on, if you have children, Lego blocks and bits of car pieces and whatever, or just rocks that have come in on the floor, and you can puncture your feet. So always have footwear on, indoors and outdoors. Very important. Wear socks that are made of cotton with no seams. You can get them at any healthcare store right now. You don't want any seams that are going to rub. You want to wear cotton socks that are a breathable material, very important. Proper fitting shoes. So you can certainly go to a podiatrist. A lot of them are carrying the specialized shoes. for, they can fit you for the diabetic shoe, but you want something comfortable where your foot lays out flat, it's not tight, and nothing is rubbing. So very important to have well-fitting shoes. And last but not least, please seek medical attention upon the first indication of a foot disorder or any type of minor wound, because a minor wound, we know, can turn into something, a major wound for someone who is a diabetic. So I hope these few little tips and tricks, if you want to call them. One thing that I will mention, that we as pedicurists, we don't do diabetic pedicures, and you shouldn't advertise yourself at that. What we do is we specialize in diabetic foot care, so we know the parameters basically of what we can do and what we can't do. And certainly then, by being able to recognize some of these conditions with the feet, we can have our clients recommend to go where they need to go. We can help them with that. But absolutely, these are just a few things that are going to help you do your job a little bit more efficiently and more effectively for those diabetic clients. So thank you for listening to me today, and I will see you again in a couple of weeks on Tuesday Tech Talk. Bye for now.